Greetings Anonymous. I have been watching your work against Scientology, and I am pleased. I am a child of Scientology. This is part of my story. Now I will talk about the true cost of the anti-psychiatric teachings of Scientology. Many years before I was born I tried to come into this world in another body. However, my mother had aborted me, scarring my supernatural psyche with the traumatic abortion engram. This is what I was actually taught. L. Ron Hubbard discovered the damage of abortion engrams by performing abortions on his own wife. Also in Scientology, not every body has a thetan, not every individual had this damage. This is the justification for fair game. People who do not recognize the truth of Scientology, quite literally are viewed as soulless, subhuman demon creatures in Homo sapiens cases. Receiving this engram explained my anger and my resistance to their authority. My thetan wanted to be over a decade older and resisted the small body I inhabited. I was told this from a very young age, probably younger than 4. I know this, because, when I would cry as a toddler, I would tell them I wished to be an adult. I do not believe I came up with this idea by myself. One of my untreated medical problems involved temporal lobe seizures. Temporal lobe seizures, unlike stereotypical seizures, create supernatural experiences in the individual's mind. However, these have an entirely physical origin. I told my parents that I sometimes left my body and would fly around the room. Sometimes I would speak in different voices and describe the memories I had from my previous lives. Because of Scientology, my parents did not recognize these as signs of a serious neurological condition, but as proof of my divinity. It was not until I was in my early 20s that I was finally put on an anti-seizure medication that allowed me to feel human for the first time in my life. By that time I had experienced other forms of seizures as well. When I was 6, my father became gravely ill and suffered a more serious form of seizure and coma. He came very close to death. During his coma, my mother continued to perform touch assists on him and takes credit for his recovery. When he awoke, he was paralyzed and had to be on anticonvulsants for several years. In Scientology, your medical problems are your fault. You are either dramatizing your averts or you are pulling it in. Despite no longer working for the church, he paid for auditing sessions to discover why he had pulled in this serious illness. My mother decided and encouraged myself and my sibling to view my father as someone permanently changed. Ultimately, the conclusion was that another thetan had taken over his body while he was unconscious. He was literally a different person, someone who hated me and did not care about me, or so I was taught. As I grew older, I began to cycle between hypersomnia and insomnia, staying awake for days at a time. One reason was my fear of falling asleep, of being possessed by a malevolent thetan. Sometimes my father would possess my body and my mother would scream at me and call me by my father's name. She did her best to drive my father's thetan from my body. In all this time, I truly believed that psychiatric medications would fundamentally change me for the worse, that I would lose myself. So I resisted them to my own detriment. My mother believed I was dramatizing my averts, and would attribute my frequent headaches to being hungover, and my stomach aches either to stress or to simple deception. Often she would accuse me of simply faking for attention. One cause of my stomach pain was acid reflux disease. For most of my adolescence I was undernourished, because eating was very physically painful to me. Both this and my headaches were complications of my underlying medical condition, and entirely out of my control or understanding. I learned to hate and mistrust my body, to see my body as the meat suck for my thetan. I viewed my physical self as trivial and unrelated to my existence. I became my own slave and would berate myself in Tome 40. I am anonymous. I will not forgive. I will not forget.